Welcome to the Eat Better, Move Better, Live Better podcast presented by Flourish with Tracy, where we'll dive into the realms of holistic wellness, plant-based nutrition, yoga, and self-care to help you live your best life. Tune in every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday at 8 a.m. Eastern for our special segments. Meditation Monday, start your week with mindfulness. Wellness Wednesdays, get the midweek boost you need. Sadhana Saturdays, dedicate weekends to personal growth. Join us as we explore and discuss all things to eat better, move better, and live better. Welcome. Today we're going to explore a powerful yogic principle. It is Svadhyaya. It's often translated as self-study or self-inquiry. Svadhyaya is considered the pathway to liberation, and it goes much deeper than simply reflecting on our behavior or thinking about our lives. It's the process of studying ourselves, observing our patterns, and learning from sacred wisdom, and remembering who we truly are beneath conditioning. Svadhyaya is one of the niyamas. The niyamas is how we relate to ourselves internally. And they include purity, contentment, discipline, effort, and surrender to a higher wisdom. Svadhyaya, the art of self-study, sits right in the middle of these practices because it acts like a mirror, helping us to see what is real and what is illusion. The word Svadhyaya comes from two Sanskrit roots, swa, which is self, and adhyaya is study, lesson, or inquiry. So Svadhyaya literally means studying the self. To interpret how we do this, it means to study sacred teachings that help us understand truth and to study our inner world. So Svadhyaya is both learning wisdom and observing ourselves through that wisdom. And this is important because without awareness, we are living and acting on autopilot. We're reacting instead of responding. We're not thinking, repeating patterns without noticing them. And we are becoming shaped by conditioning rather than our consciousness. And without self-study, we are acting unconsciously and impulsively. Svadhyaya interrupts unconscious living. It invites us to ask, who am I really? And to define that authentically, to not be defined by your job, your outer identity, your history, or any roles. Svadhyaya is much deeper than that. It is the true self, which is Atman, the witnessing of your consciousness. And self-study helps us discover the difference between the constructed outer self and the true inner self. Self-study then can lead to liberation. And when we suffer, sometimes it's caused by misidentifying. We think that we are our thoughts, or we think we are our emotions, or our fears, or our stories, or our wounds. However, Svadhyaya teaches us something profound, that you are actually the awareness observing all of those things. It's almost as if you are external, outside of yourself, looking at yourself. And when you practice self-study, Svadhyaya, you begin to notice, I am not my anger. I am witnessing anger. I am not my fear. I am observing fear. I am not my thoughts. I am aware of my thoughts. And this realization can be very liberating. Because if you can observe something, then you are not trapped inside of it. This is the beginning of freedom, of liberation. And when we begin to start waking up from unconscious patterns, we wake up. This is Svadhyaya. So one of the goals of Svadhyaya or self-study is to begin to recognize patterns, the patterns that may have previously shaped us. We all have them. We have patterns in how we think, patterns in our relationships and who we engage with, patterns in reactions and emotional triggers, patterns in our habits and patterns in our beliefs. And many of these patterns were most likely formed in our early life through our family, our culture, our experiences, or our survival mechanisms. And oftentimes, we engage based on those patterns, not even aware of them. And this is where self-study, Svadhyaya, becomes powerful. Because instead of judging ourselves based on those previously conceived patterns, we become curious. And curiosity is essential. Because self-study is not self-criticism, not self-judging. It is self-understanding. And the path to understanding may begin with questions like, why does this situation trigger me? Why do I react this way? What belief is underneath this emotion? Where did this pattern begin? What am I afraid might happen? When we begin observing our internal world with compassion, something shifts. We move from reactive living to conscious living. When we embrace a practice of Svadhyaya, we begin to develop the inner witness. And this is our ability to observe our thoughts, emotion, impulses, and reactions without immediately needing or having to identify with them. For example, imagine sitting by a river, and the river is your thoughts. Instead of jumping into the water with the river being carried away, you simply just sit on the bank and watch it flow. This is awareness. And the more we practice awareness, the more space appears. And that space will then begin to expand between stimulus and response. And within that space, our freedom lives. Many think that transformation requires or force a huge shift or change. It doesn't have to be. Transformation simply begins with being aware. And when we see clearly, when we see with awareness, shift naturally begins to unfold. Svadhyaya reveals the difference between the ego, which is our identity, and our authenticity, our true self. The ego identity is built from fear, protection, comparison, control, validation, and survival. And we may find ourselves saying things like, I must prove myself, I must be right, I must be liked, I must be in control. However, our deeper, true, authentic self operates from presence, compassion, awareness, connection, and truth. Self-study allows us to notice, which voice is speaking right now? Is this fear or is this wisdom? This question alone can shift how you move within your life. Because when we notice patterns of our ego, we are no longer unconsciously controlled by it. And this small act of being aware is liberation. Another aspect of Svadhyaya is studying spiritual teachings. You can read texts, for example, like the Bhagavad Gita or the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. They are both considered mirrors of consciousness, and they help to reveal truth about mind, suffering, awareness, and awakening. But the purpose is not just the reading, the purpose is reflection. And it doesn't have to be this material, it can be any spiritual material that resonates with you. After reading any spiritual text or teaching, ask yourself, how does this show up in my life? Where do I see this pattern in myself? What is this teaching inviting me to notice? This is Svadhyaya. The teaching becomes alive through self-reflection. So in addition to reading spiritual texts, how might you practice to cultivate Svadhyaya? Here are 4 tools you can use. First, simply observe, and do so mindfully. Throughout the day, pause and notice. Check in with yourself. What am I feeling right now? What thought is repeating? What belief is driving this reaction? Just simply observing mindfully will build awareness. Second, journal. Establish a practice of journaling regularly. Journaling is one of the most powerful forms of Svadhyaya, and you may explore journaling through prompts such as, what triggered me today and why? What patterns kept repeating in my life? What emotion do I avoid the most? What story about myself may not be true? What would my highest self say right now? Over time, patterns become clear, and clarity leads to transformation. The third is meditation for self-study or inquiry. Meditation is essential for Svadhyaya because it allows the mind to settle enough to observe clearly. Just a simple self-inquiry meditation, such as just sitting comfortably, breathing slowly, and asking yourself gently, who is aware of this breath? Who is aware of this thought? Who is noticing this moment? And just allow the question to open awareness rather than forcing an answer. And this practice gradually reveals how you observe consciously. The fourth is to pause, to practice pausing. When something emotionally intense occurs, pause. When you pause, you get to ask yourself questions instead of immediately reacting. You can ask, what is happening inside me? What am I believing right now? Is this reaction coming from fear or wisdom? Even pausing for just 5 seconds in the middle of an event can change the trajectory of that moment. True Svadhyaya must include compassion. Without compassion, self-study becomes harsh self-judgment. Svadhyaya teaches us something very important. At any given moment, we're doing the very best we can with the awareness we have. This perspective softens self-inquiry. And this allows us to shift from asking, what is wrong with me? To instead ask, what is this experience teaching me? This shift opens healing. And when it happens, you will know. There are signs that indicate Svadhyaya is working. And you'll know that your self-study is deepening when you notice that you react less quickly, you become more curious than defensive, you recognize patterns earlier, you feel less controlled by emotions, you take responsibility for your growth, and you feel more connected to your authentic self. And then perhaps most importantly, you begin to experience more inner freedom. So I'd like to invite you to take a moment here to reflect, to close your eyes, taking a slow breath in, slow breath out. With gentleness, consider this question. Who am I when I am not in my roles, my stories, when I'm not my expectations, my past, when I'm not my fears? Notice what remains. Awareness is still here. Presence is still here. Svadhyaya is the journey of remembering. It's the journey of remembering this truth. The truth of not becoming someone new. The truth of uncovering who you've always been. Take a deep breath in, a slow breath out, and open your eyes. Fully awake and aware, feeling this awareness alive, feeling this presence within you. When we truly know ourselves, we are no longer bound by unconscious patterns. Self-study is the path to liberation. May you gently, with compassion, shift, transform, and grow through your Svadhyaya. Thank you for sharing time and space today. Thanks for tuning in. I hope today's insights help you on a personal journey towards a healthier, happier life. Don't forget to join every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday at 8 a.m. Eastern for more self-care and holistic wellness tips. Before you go, make sure to comment, click the bell, like, and subscribe buttons for upcoming episode notifications. Be sure to always consult a medical professional before making any major changes regarding your health, diet, or routine. In the meanwhile, stay motivated, stay inspired, and remember, every step you take is one step closer to a better you. Until next time, keep flourishing, and as always, may all be well.